I left the diner, the woman's words echoing in my ears, the tapping, that rhythmic, impatient sound. I drove away from Milford, vowing never to return. But the image of those glassy-eyed dolls, the silent nutcrackers, and the humid, overgrown kitchen remained, a dark stain on my memory. Weeks turned into months, and though I tried to bury the experience, it clawed its way back into my thoughts, especially at night. The tapping, the feeling of being watched, the oppressive stillness of that desolate place, they lingered like a phantom limb. I started having vivid dreams where the dolls moved, their porcelain faces contorting into grotesque smiles, and the nutcrackers clicked their wooden jaws, their eyes following me. One night I found myself compulsively searching online for information about Milford and the Hawthorne property. I discovered old newspaper articles about the eccentric Thomas Hawthorne, a reclusive collector who had vanished without a trace. The articles painted a disturbing picture, a man obsessed with the occult, convinced that inanimate objects held residual energy, spirits trapped within their forms. One article, dated years before Hawthorne's disappearance, mentioned a series of strange occurrences in the town. Unexplained noises, objects moving on their own, and a chilling sense of dread that permeated the area. The article quoted a local historian who speculated that Hawthorne's obsession had somehow disturbed something, awakened something that should have remained dormant. A particular phrase from the article stuck in my mind, the tapping of the unseen. It resonated with the sound I had heard in the motel, the rhythmic, impatient tapping that had sent shivers down my spine. Driven by a morbid curiosity, I decided to revisit Milford. I needed to see the Hawthorne property again, to confront the source of my unease. This time I was prepared. I brought a digital recorder, a camera, and a sense of grim determination. I arrived in Milford late in the afternoon, the setting sun casting long, ominous shadows. The gated community looked even more desolate in the fading light. I parked my car outside the gate and walked towards the motel, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The air was thick with humidity, and the overgrown vegetation pressed against the buildings like grasping hands. I entered the motel room, the same room I had stayed in, and a wave of nausea washed over me. The tropical plants in the kitchen were withered and brown, their leaves curled and brittle. The dolls and nutcrackers were still there, their silent presence more menacing than before. I set up my equipment and began to explore. I recorded the silence, the creaking floorboards, the rustling of the dead plants. I took pictures of the dolls, their glassy eyes staring into the lens, and the nutcrackers, their wooden faces frozen in a perpetual sneer. As I moved through the rooms, I felt a growing sense of unease. The air grew colder, and the silence became oppressive. I heard whispers, faint and indistinct, like voices carried on a distant wind. Then I heard it again, the tapping, rhythmic, impatient, coming from the kitchen. It grew louder, more insistent, like fingers drumming on the wooden table. I followed the sound, my heart pounding in my chest. In the kitchen I found a small wooden music box, tucked away behind a cluster of dead plants. It was old, its surface scratched and worn. The tapping was coming from inside. I hesitated, then slowly opened the music box. A faint, melancholic melody filled the room, and the tapping stopped. Inside the box I found a small, tarnished key. I didn't know what the key opened, but I knew it was important. It felt charged, imbued with a dark energy. I left the motel, the key clutched in my hand, and drove away from Milford, vowing never to return. Back home, I researched music boxes and found many of the same model were used to hold ashes of the deceased. I also found that Thomas Hawthorne's wife had died many years before him, and he was said to be heartbroken. I knew then that the tapping was her, trapped in the music box, and the key was hers as well. I never went back to Milford, but I still have the key and the music box. Some things are best left undisturbed.